I have taken a bit of a break from bidding because we've covered so much bidding over the last 3.5 years that I thought it might be helpful to talk about some of the elements of playing the hand, and in particular, go over some of the things that I'm sure most of you know, but may not be familiar with considerations when you're talking about things like the danger hand and the hold-up play and how to play to the first trick. You know, they say that more contracts are lost by failing to stop and think and make a good plan and then play accurately to trick one than by any other means. Simply winning the trick in the wrong hand at trick one, or failing to interpret the opening lead appropriately and by remembering the bidding and things like that. So I thought we would talk about a little of that today, including some card combinations that present themselves at trick one often. So first thing, and all of you who have been listening to me for these many years know that I beat the drum a lot about making a plan. When you're going to play a hand, it is absolutely imperative that you stop and look at the dummy, look at your hand. Of course, depending on whether it's a no trump contract or a suit contract, your considerations will be a little different. But it's important to review the bidding as well, to say, well, did one of my opponents bid, or did one of them use the takeout double, for instance? So what can I infer that will help me in the play of the hand if one of them used a takeout double or a negative double or a support double? Or just as importantly, what if one of them had the opportunity to use a support double and didn't? What does that tell me? Well, if your opponents use support doubles, you might infer that opener doesn't have 3-card support for his partner's major suit, for instance. It's all these kind of things that you need to be thinking about. So don't just, even if it's a singleton in the dummy, don't just play to the first trick and then stop. You may have needed to unblock something from your hand. As I said, more contracts are lost at the first trick than at any other single trick that's played during that hand. So don't play too quickly. Think about the opening lead. If you're unsure about your opponent's agreements, just say, what are your leads to the partner of the opening leader? And they'll say fourth best or third, fifth best, or top of nothing. Or if opening leader is leading a suit that his partner bid, what is your agreement on leading from 3 small, for instance? Analyzing the opening lead can tell you a lot about how the cards lie around the table in that particular suit. So all these things are very important. It's especially important, too, to remember whether you're playing a no-trump contract or a suit contract. And before you laugh too much at that, I have been known to just be playing along, and all of a sudden I remember, I'm not playing no-trump. I'm in 4 spades or something silly like that. And I know that I'm not the only one that's happened to, because you feel so silly when you're leading out your spades, just taking tricks, and your partner is sitting there very quietly, not saying anything. And then you wake up and they say, yeah, I thought that you were a little confused there. So take a minute and think and be sure you know what your final contract is. If that's never happened to you, just wait. It will. And as I said, you'll feel pretty silly when it does. So when you're playing a suit contract, here are the things you need to think about. Losers are counted from the long trump hand, even though the long trump hand may be the dummy. Say, for instance, in the case of where one of the players has used a Michael's Q bid, or where one of the players has used a Jacoby transfer or even a Texas transfer. You count losers from the long trump hand. When you see how many losers you have, then, of course, you know whether you have too many or whether your contract is a lead pipe cinch, depending on how the cards lie, barring something like a 5-0 trump break or something like that, which has been known to happen, but is not terribly common. So if you have some losers, and you probably do, or you have more than you can afford, you need to kind of decide how you're going to take care of them. Do I need to trump them? Can I take a finesse, or can I set up a long suit and discard them? Or in other words, it's the old trump or dump thought. Which one am I going to use when I'm playing a suit contract? Now, if the plan calls for trumping one or more losers in the dummy, you must do that before you pull all the dummy's trumps. Obviously, if you use all the dummy's trumps and pulling the opponent's cards in that suit, you won't have one left to trump a loser. Maybe you think you will have some left if the outstanding trumps break as you would normally expect, and you lead a couple of rounds of trumps and they didn't break. They're 4-1. They're not 3-2. Sometimes you have to stop and modify the plan. Now, if there's no other work to do first, then the first thing you should do is draw the opponent's trumps. This may seem elementary, but you'd be surprised how many times people don't do that. Make sure that you count how many times the opponents follow. The easiest way to do that is not to count in your head and say, okay, I have played 2 rounds and everybody followed. That's 8. I can see 3 more of them between the 2 hands. Let's see. Now I need to count again. The easiest way that I have found that works for me to count trumps is, let's say I'm playing a 5-3 fit in spades. Well, when I play 1 round, everybody follows. I was missing 5 of them. Now I'm missing only 3. In other words, I count how many are still missing rather than how many actually have been played in total. It's a much easier total to keep track of if you count them as they're played. I started with 5 losers. I play 1 round. Everybody follows. That means I still have 3 out there. I play another round. Only 1 of them played. I still have 2 more out, and 1 person doesn't have any more. That means I have to draw 2 more rounds before all the trumps are in. That, for me, is an easier way to count the trumps. It may not be for you, and if you have a way you like to do it, then by all means stick with it. But if you don't have a way and you find it hard to keep track, think about counting how many of them are missing, and then as you play, how many of them are still outstanding. That's easier than counting the total number of 13. Now, after you've drawn trumps, the next thing you generally want to do is set up your longest side suit. And then once you've done that, and you give up your losers early in a long side suit, it's generally a good rule when defending no trump or playing no trump or playing a suit contract to take your losses early. That way you maintain control in a suit the best you can. After you have set up your long suit, then cash any winners you have in the shorter suits. This is just a really basic plan for playing a suit contract. There may be other issues involved on some hands, like transportation issues, and these are things that you have to think about before you play to trick 1. I have a long suit I want to set up in the dummy. If I have a choice of where to win the first trick, I need to be sure that I leave an entry in the dummy so I can get to my long suit once I've got it set up. It does you no good to set up a long suit if you don't have a way to get there, does it? So now, when playing in a no trump contract, obviously trumping losers is not an option. So we're not even going to think about that. But the first thing you do is count your sure winners. And that doesn't mean if you have king, queen, jack, 10 in one of the suits that you can count 3 winners. That's not what we're doing when we count our sure winners. Sure winners are the tricks we can take without giving up the lead, because I'm sure you're all familiar with the situation where you have only 1 stop in a suit, and of course that's the opponent's suit that they have led. It nearly always works out that. It's funny how the opponents always seem to know. Well, if we have only 1 stop and not very much length in the suit, then it stands to reason that that may be the opponent's best suit. So, of course, they're going to lead it. Well, If you have to give up the lead, the opponents may be able to take enough tricks to set your contract before you can get that suit with King, Queen, Jack, 10 set up. So we count only the tricks we can take without giving up the lead. If you don't have enough tricks, then you decide which of your suits offers the best chance to make up your shortfall. And that's a suit like that King, Queen, Jack, 10. If you can afford to give up the lead, then that is your likely candidate. That suit is called your working suit. And after you gain the lead, the first thing you do is begin working on that working suit. You don't cash out winners in any side suits. You go to work on that suit that's going to provide the tricks that you need to come to 9 if you're in a game contract and no trump. Unless you have transportation issues, you should stick with one suit at a time, most generally. When you have to use an outside suit as transportation and setting up your long suit where you want to take tricks, then that means there are 2 suits that you're counting at the same time, and that's a little more difficult than counting just the working suit. But if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. And if you forget or get distracted, it's not the end of the world. Any of these skills have to be developed through practice. Nobody is able to keep track of all 4 suits right from the beginning of their bridge careers. This is a skill you have to work on developing. So if you forget, don't be upset with yourself. Just keep working on it. When you get your source of tricks or your working suit all set up, then cash your winners. And if you need to work on another suit as well, then you start your counting all over again. That's why I made the point of trying to count only one suit at a time. It's hard enough to try to keep track of all of these suits, to try to remember, okay, this many have been played and this many have been played. Is that little 3 over there good or isn't it? We've all been there. All of a sudden you can't remember. So after you've done all of that, then you cash your winners that you have in the side suits where you maybe didn't necessarily have anything you needed to work on. So one of the things that you can work on as declarer is playing to trick 1. After you've made your plan, and well, after the opening lead is at the table and the dummy comes down, let's say that the opening leader led the 4 of spades. And this is your situation here. You have ace and 2 small in the dummy and queen and 2 small in your own hand. I think most of you know the old saying, second hand low. If you play the ace at the first trick here, well, what if the third hand had only the jack? I mean, after all, opening leader played the 4, and if it's a 4th best lead, that means he probably has something good at the top. So in this situation, how many cards does the opening leader have in this suit? Anybody want to answer that question? How many cards does he have?
4.
4, yes. How do you know that?
The 2 and 3 are dummy.
Right. You can see the 2 and the 3. If your opponents use 4th best leads, then this 4 is his 4th best, and it's the lowest card that's missing. So there are 4 spades here in opening leader's hand. So it looks to me like that this suit is divided 4-3-3-3 around the table. Only the opening lead has hit the table, but already you know the distribution of the spade suit around the table. Are you always able to know exactly how many cards the opening leader has in the suit? No, of course not. In this game, nothing is ever that simple. But in this case, you can figure out that the spades are 4-3-3-3. Now, does opening leader have the king or the jack at the top? We don't know. But no matter which it is, If you play low from the dummy, you are guaranteed 2 tricks in this suit. The rule is, see, look at this, same thing. Even if you switch the 2 cards here, even if you switch the 2 high cards in dummy and declarer's hand, if you play low from the dummy, you have an excellent chance of getting 2 tricks from this suit, no matter how the king, well, the only way you won't is if the third hand has both the king and the jack. Then in this situation over here, number 2, you will get only 1 trick. Unfortunate, but sometimes it happens. But if you play the ace immediately here, you never get more than 1 trick, or it will be highly unlikely. If you play the ace and third hand and only the jack, when he gets in the lead and he leads back, your queen will then be trapped between the jack and the king over here, if that's the situation. But if you play low, you have an excellent shot of getting 2 tricks, no matter who holds the king and the jack. Same thing here. When the queen and the ace are reversed, a lot of people want to play high to try to trap the king over here. Well, you don't have the jack. So you're never getting more than 1 trick when you play the suit that way. If you play the 2 and third hand has only the jack, then you will capture the jack with the ace and then lead toward the queen. If your left-hand opponent has the king, you will get a second trick with the queen. But you will never get more than 1 trick, or it's highly unlikely that you will, or you don't give yourself the best chance to get 2 tricks if you play high from the dummy as second hand. So here's hint number 1 for improving declarer play. With unequal honors split between the 2 hands, it is not often right to play second hand high. Once in a while it is. But that's why you stop to make a plan, and you could see that if you let your right-hand opponent in, you might have a big problem. That's not the case here. We're talking about only 1 suit at a time. You always have to think about the hand as a whole. But with these particular combinations, this is the best way to play it to get 2 tricks. Now, just as declarer would play the ace to cover the jack or the king in example number 2, here is another instance where that is also true. If the lead is the 4, dummy plays the 5, and third hand produces the jack. Remember, if he has the king and the jack, the king and the jack and the queen and the dummy are all equal cards. So he plays the lowest of equal cards. The only thing we know for sure is when third hand plays the jack, he denies the 10. Well, no biggie. We can see the 10. We know he doesn't have it. But in this case, when third hand plays the jack, take it with the ace. If you duck, you never get more than 1 trick. The reason you play the ace on the jack is because you are guaranteed a second trick because you have the queen and the 10. The spot cards you hold are very, very important. Just looking at this and applying the general rule of 7, we would think, okay, I should hold up. I would like to hold up twice. Does everybody remembers what the rule of 7 is, right? The hold up play. In case you don't, when you have a high card in the suit that your opponents have led, you subtract the total number of cards between your hand and the dummy from 7. That's how many times you should hold up that stopper you have. Well, in this case, we have a potential second stopper. Maybe you have ace and 2 small in one hand and 2 small in another hand. In other words, no chance for a second trick. That's when you automatically say, okay, rule of 7 says to hold up twice and take the third round. In this case, you don't have that option because you only have 2 cards in the suit. But if the third hand plays the jack here, you should play the ace because you have the queen and the 10. If you duck the first trick, allowing the third hand to hold the jack, you never get a trick with the queen, you never get a trick with the 10. So when you have this kind of situation, look at the cards that are in your hand and in the dummy. In this case, playing the ace on the jack guarantees a second trick, but if you duck, you get only one. Here's another example. This time the opening leader leads the 5. We don't know whether he has 5 cards in the suit or 4, because we see only the 2 and the 3 and the 6 here. If you play a high card here from the dummy, you might think to yourself, well, hey, I have the king. If third hand doesn't have the ace, I get a trick with it. Well, there must be some reason why the opening leader led that spade. The lead of the 5 kind of says that he has something good in the suit. Third hand has produced the jack. But if you play low, and West has led from a suit topped by the ace, you get 2 tricks, not just one. If you play the king at the first trick, when third hand gets back in with the lead, he will trap. You will have to play the queen on the second trick. Then the opening leader will take that trick. So playing low, not high, on the opening lead guarantees you 2 tricks if West has the ace. There's at least a 50-50 shot. Consider the bidding. If West bids spades, say he overcalled a spade, he has 5 of them. He should have something in the suit. Well, he doesn't have the king, queen, or jack. It must be a suit topped by the ace 10 or the ace 9, something like that. We know third hand doesn't have the 10. How do we know that? Anybody know? Yeah, he played the jack. Exactly. Holding the jack and the 10, he plays the 10. That tells his partner, hey, I may or may not have the jack. But by playing the jack, he denies holding the 10. Well, partner knows over here whether or not he has the 10. But by playing the jack, he tells his partner that, hey, if you don't have the 10, declarer does. So it's helpful to partner, but if the declarer is paying attention, it's helpful to him also. But he has to pay attention and remember to apply what he knows. But if West has led from a suit topped by the ace, on this layout, declarer gets 2 tricks, and he's always entitled to 2 tricks if declarer plays low from the dummy at trick 1. If he goes up with the big one, he will get only 1. Now, here's another similar situation, but it's just different enough that you need to think about it. If declarer calls for the 10 and East plays an honor, he gets only 1 trick, even if he plays the ace at trick 1. But if he plays low, look what happens. If third hand produces the king or the queen, it doesn't make any difference which one it is. Or maybe he has both. Then declarer plays the ace, and he has the jack and the 10 both left. And there's only 1 honor out that's higher. So he gets 2 tricks from this combination if he plays low from the dummy. It's possible that third hand could do no better than produce the 9. In that case, you get a trick with the jack to start, and then you get another trick from the ace. So it is always right to play low when this is the kind of layout that you have. Ace, jack, small, opposite 10, small in the dummy. Doesn't matter which honor third hand produces. If you cover it, you have the jack and the 10 left. That's enough to guarantee you another trick. Now then, this time we have the 3 of spades that hits the table. Can't see the 2, can't tell how many spades the opening leader has. If you play low from the dummy and third hand produces the king, where's the queen?
Opening lead hand.
You bet, in the opening leader's hand. If they're playing the way they're supposed to. Now, in a limited game, this may not be true. A lot of people want to play the higher card of touching honors, but when you're third hand, remember, you lead higher of touching honors when you're playing third hand in an attempt to win the trick. You play high, but only as high as necessary. Lower of touching honors when you're trying to win the trick as third hand. Highest of touching honors when you're leading. Now then, if you play the 3 here on the lead, you play the 5. Third hand produces the king. He should not duck if he has the king, because it's his job to help partner set up his suit. Partner has led his best suit, unless, of course, third hand bids spades, and then he's trying to cooperate and help third hand set up his suit. So if third hand plays the king, you play the ace. You can get a second trick in the suit by leading toward the jack then. How do you know that's true? If people have played their cards correctly, West over here holds the queen. If you lead the 7 toward the jack, West has a choice. He can either play his queen immediately, or he can duck, in which case the jack will win that trick right then. So if you play the ace here, when the king is played, now change that to the queen, and you don't know where the king is. You don't know. It depends on the bidding. The bidding will give you a clue from that. But if the third hand produces the king, you should always play the ace in this situation, then lead toward that remaining honor that's in the dummy. These are just a few ideas about how to play at trick 1 that will help you find extra tricks. But if nobody ever points these things out to you, you never get a clue. And what you have to do to learn this is make mistakes. A lot of them. Every time I think I about have this figured out, well, it wasn't right in this situation, because my situation was that I had the king 10-9 instead of the king jack 9. And so don't expect to get it right every time. There's so many different possible combinations that it's obvious that you're going to make some mistakes along the way. And what normally would happen won't be the thing that always happens. That's the nature of this game. I mean, after all, if we had rules and if we always followed them and they always worked, then we'd be bored with this game after about playing it twice. But because of all the different combinations that are possible out there, you're going to have to practice it, expect to make mistakes. And as you get more experience, you will make the right choices more often. That's just like any other aspect of the game.
Susan?
Yes.
One question. The lead is made on the board. You have the ace queen. So do you play the ace after the lead, or do you play the queen? I found often if I play the queen, the king is behind me, I lose control immediately, and I can immediately go down.
Well,
I never know whether to come up with the ace or wait.
Well, and part of that is depending on what your opponent's level of skill is. That's the hard thing about something at trick 1. You don't have any preceding play to analyze to try to figure out where that king might be. You have to think about things like, could that opening lead have been a singleton? Can I get a clue from the bidding? Did my opponent open a weak 2 here? And I see 6 cards between the dummy and my hand? then go up with the ace, because that lead has to be a singleton. It's not always that obvious. In general, though, if I have any suspicion at all that that is a singleton, for instance, maybe the opening leader preempted, didn't lead his suit. Either it's really broken, maybe it's ace, queen, 10, little. A lead from that kind of holding is really risky. Maybe it's that situation, or maybe he preempted at the 3 level, or even the 2 level. When an opening leader doesn't lead his suit, generally that opening lead suit is a singleton in his hand. Particularly if you have a singleton in your hand, expect that there's at least one other hand at the table that has a singleton. So that's the first thing you need to ask yourself. If the finesse loses, what can happen to me? Can they set me immediately? Do I have a chance to make the contract? If I take the ace, draw the trumps, and then lead toward the queen, if indeed that left-hand opponent has the king, you will eventually get a trick with that queen anyway. So sometimes it depends on what the bidding has been, how aggressively the opponents think they need to be. In other words, most people don't underlead a king unless the situation calls for an aggressive opening lead. Sorry, I can't be more definitive, Janet. These are the things I think about, though, when I'm presented with that situation. What's the chance that this could be a singleton? And if I give my right-handed opponent the opportunity to lead it back, does that jeopardize my contract? Can I still make the contract even if round 2 gets roughed? Most people don't underlead kings. Used to be when I learned, the saying was never underlead a king. Well, we've talked about the need to be aggressive sometimes, and underleading a king is aggressive. Sometimes an aggressive lead is called for. So it's not a case of never ever do it, but do it when the situation calls for it. So in general, I tend to think about what might happen if I take the finesse and it loses. How can I be hurt?
Okay,
If indeed your left-hand opponent holds the king, you will lose a trick to the king, but you might have lost one anyway. That's the thing. It all depends on what the rest of your hand looks like, and that's where that all-important plan comes in. I'm sorry, I wish I could give you the absolute definitive answer, but it changes depending on what the situation is. I mean, we've all been faced with that, and I don't know about you, but I don't get it right all the time. On this hand, this is the way the bidding went. South opened a diamond. North bid 2 clubs. South says, nah, don't care for that. Don't particularly want to play clubs because I have something in the majors here. 2 no trump, 3 no trump. Short and sweet, common contract. Here comes the opening lead from West. It's the 4. Now, dummy plays low, and East inserts the queen. What should happen here?
Play the ace.
Play the ace, huh? Okay. Why do you say that, Deborah?
So you can set up your club suit before you lose the lead again.
Well, that's right. If you drive out the ace, back comes a spade, but West has to play the king if he wants to take the trick because he can see the jack in the dummy. Right? If he plays low, then the jack takes a trick and Declare romps home with all the tricks he needs. Now, he can play the king, but then he has to play another spade to set up the suit, and the jack is the stopper. You have to think about how the suit is lying around the table. Nobody bids spades. That's because West doesn't have enough points to overcall. I would not overcall with only 6 points and a ratty suit like that. Some of you might, but I would not. Leading the 4 and having the third hand play the queen. You can see the ace and jack. Is it possible that East also has the king of spades? It is. But since West led the 4, he should have a high honor in that, shouldn't he? I mean, after all, if you use fourth best leads, there should be 3 cards higher than that 4. There was no bidding in the auction, so this would presumably be West's longest and strongest suit. If you allow the queen to hold the trick, here is what happens. This is what you have to do when you're making a decision like this. What happens if I hold up? East wins the trick with the queen. I mean, after all, it looks like I should hold up. I have 5 cards. Rule of 7 tells me to hold up. But if the queen holds the trick, East will return the 8. Remember, when you're turning an opening lead, you give your partner current count. When you have a double to the left, you play the higher of the 2. He will return the 8. You now have to play the ace. West will play the 3 to show his partner he started with 5 of them. You'll play the 7 from the dummy. Notice, East still has a spade left in his hand. When you lead a club to try to set up the clubs, East will win. He has to. He has to win the first trick. But he still has the 2 of spades. South discards. West plays the king, dropping the jack. But if you cover the queen, that jack remains guarded. This is the kind of thing you have to think about. Yeah, the rule of 7 says I should hold up. But this is a case where I have a second stopper here in the dummy if I play the ace on the first trick. This is counter to what the rule of 7 might tell you should do. But the thing that you have to do is remember to stop and think about what will happen if I do hold up. Well, my ace won't capture an honor. It'll capture a low card. It'll capture all low cards. If I win the trick with the ace, lead a club, East wins, returns the 8 again, but now West has to play the king because he sees the jack in the dummy. He can clear the suit by playing a spade, but the jack takes the trick and the clubs are set up and your contract is made. But if you hold up, West will take enough spade tricks to go along with that ace of clubs to beat it. So don't just blindly follow the rule of 7. Look at the cards you have between your hand and the dummy and then decide whether it makes sense, whether you can give yourself a second stopper. Notice if this were the 10 instead of the jack, there's no second stopper, right? It all depends on which cards they are. Now, here we have the most common of all auctions. 1 no trump, 3 no trump. Once again, lead of the 4 of spades. And by the way, I should mention before I go on an auction like this, a major suit should be led. This auction screams for a major suit lead. And that's because the people who are playing the hand didn't attempt to locate a major suit fit. That means they pretty much have the minor suits locked up. Nobody used stamen, nobody used a transfer. So minor suits are pretty much locked up between the 2 hands. So the opening leader should seriously consider leading a major suit. With a 5-card spade suit in his hand and an outside entry, West has really gotten his side off to a good start here. So here we have a 4th best lead. Now, he has to infer to himself that West has either a 4 or a 5-card suit. He can't tell. He can see the 2, but he cannot see the 3. He should be really concerned. If West has 5 cards in the suit, if he also has an entry, we're in danger. We're absolutely in danger. So the thing to think about, though, in this situation is the way the cards lie is a problem for me only if West has 5 spades. If he has only 4, then the opponents can take only 3 spade tricks because I have the ace. If he has 6 of them, then East has only 1 spade. And I just have to make sure that all my finesses go into the East hand. That's the danger hand concept, and we're going to talk about that a couple of weeks from now. So the situation that concerns me is 5 spades in the West hand. Okay, now let's think about the opening lead again. West didn't lead an honor. That means he does not have 3 touching honors to make a sequence, or 3 almost touching honors. In other words, an imperfect sequence. He doesn't have king, queen, jack. I can see the 10, so it's for certain he doesn't have king, queen, 10. That means that East either has a singleton honor or a doubleton honor. One of my jobs as declarer is to try to block communication between the 2 defenders' hands. Notice what happens. If I play the ace, unless East is really on the ball and he jettisons that queen of spades out of his hand, the suit will block, because East will win the second round of the suit, and then he has no more spades to play back. I know he either has 1 spade or he has honor doubleton. I strongly suspect that it's honor doubleton because the opening lead was not the king of spades. It wasn't the queen of spades. So there's no perfect sequence or even imperfect sequence in the West hand. Now then, if declarer wins the ace at the first trick, he's obviously going to start working on those clubs. He's got to have 3 club tricks here, or he wants 3 club tricks, obviously. So when he starts, West can win the ace if he leads the king, dropping the queen. That might look like, well, hey, he's pretty smart. The suit's not blocked here in the East hand. But watch what happens. The 10 also falls. The jack takes the next trick, which means the 6 out of declarer's hand falls, and this 9 stands up. The 9 becomes a 4th round stopper, even if West is smart enough to lead the king. If he leads the 3, East wins the trick with the queen and says, how can I get back to my partner's hand? Well, you can see he can't get back in one of the other 2 suits. In this case, if you've done your thinking at trick 1, you can figure out that the situation that is a problem for you is 5 spades in the West hand, not a perfect sequence. That means that East most likely holds an honor doubleton. He could hold a singleton honor and it would fall. If he has a singleton, that's okay. Perfectly okay. Because if he gets the lead, he can't lead a spade back. It's when West has 5 spades that we have to be concerned. But since the opening lead was not an honor, we know that East has an honor doubleton, jack small or queen small, one of the 2. Going up with the ace then allows the 9 to stand up. Now, if you didn't have the 9, if you had only small spot cards here, that's a different situation entirely. That's what makes this so hard to know when you're trying to figure out what the right play is. It's because it depends on what the spot cards are. It doesn't always work out like this. This is a lesson hand, and so we know it's going to work out. But these are the kinds of things that you think about at trick one in order to improve your declarer play. Now, one of the classic situations that we hear about is don't hold up at trick one if you fear a switch to another suit. So West opens the bidding one spade, North doubles for takeout. Perfect hand for a takeout double here. 4 cards in all the unbid suits. South says, well, I'm delighted that you have an opening hand, but my best suit is the opponent's suit. So what do? Holding 11 high card points, I bid 2 no trump. And North says, oh, well, okay, I was hoping you had 4 hearts, but you evidently don't. So I'm willing to play 3 no trump based on the fact that you tell me that you have the spades in hand. All right, South counts his winners, and he counts 6 of them. He needs 3 more, and that diamond suit is standing up there waving the red flag saying, pick me, pick me. That's the obvious source for the 3 tricks that he needs. So, West has led the spade king. East follows with the 2. What is South going to do? Holding 5 cards in the suit, the rule of 7 says hold it up twice. And why does East play the 2 here? Why not play the 7 or the 9 or whatever? What is he telling his partner when he plays the 2?
Let's go count.
That's part of it. And it's also saying, I don't have a touching honor. Proceed at your own risk. Watch what happens if West continues with the queen. Then South swoops down on that queen with his ace, and his jack is promoted into a second spade trick. He's telling his partner, bad attitude here, partner. I cannot help you. I do not hold a touching honor. Proceed at your own risk. If West is paying attention, he knows he's at risk if he continues spades, because his partner has said, I have nothing to help you over here. So West should take a look at that dummy and say, he doesn't have anything in hearts. I presume the declarer does, but maybe I should switch to a heart here. If my partner doesn't have anything in spades, maybe he has something in hearts, because after all, nobody bid a major suit here except me. So West should switch to the king of hearts after he sees the 2 of spades from his partner. Now what? We're even more wide open in hearts than we are in spades. This is a situation where South needs to play the ace and try to avoid letting East get in the lead. If East gets in the lead and pushes a spade through that jack, well, they're going to take 4 tricks plus the trick that East took for a 1-trick set. But South is looking at the cards in his hand and in dummy, and he says, oh, I have an even bigger problem in hearts. I do not want a heart switch. Now, given the fact that West opened the bidding and the opponents are in game, everybody at the table knows that East is broke. So what's the likelihood that he can take a trick in spades? Well, we know he doesn't have a trick in spades. We had the lead of the king here. I can see the ace jack. That means king, queen, 10 has to be over there in the West hand. It has to be. Otherwise, he'd have led a small card. Remember, imperfect sequences work just as well as perfect sequences do. So this is a case where South needs to play the ace at the first trick. He's pretty sure that West has the ace of diamonds. There just aren't enough points in the deck for East to have the ace of diamonds. In fact, it just doesn't seem logical at all. If West doesn't have the ace of diamonds, he doesn't have enough to open. So, if West is leading the spades, it's no big deal. He can take his queen, but now my jack is good. West cannot hurt me. He's bound to have the ace of diamonds. He can't hurt me if he's leading spades, but East can. So this is what South should be thinking about. I have to cover that king, get to work on the diamonds. When West wins his ace of diamonds, he can take one spade trick, but I take the next one, and now I have my contract. If he holds up and West very smartly, I mean, he's not going to switch to a club or to a diamond. He can see the dummy. He would switch to the king of hearts. Look what his partner's holding over here. He doesn't know that, but he says, you know, my partner has 1 or 2 points at the most. That's all. Maybe he has the jack of hearts. If he has the jack of anything else, well, I know it's not clubs or diamonds. And he played the 2 of spades, so he doesn't have the jack of spades either, because that's a touching honor to my promised king queen, and he'd have played a higher card. So right away, he can figure out, well, he doesn't have any of the other missing jacks. If he has a jack, it has to be the jack of hearts. If he doesn't have that, well, I'm never beating 3-no trump when he switches to the king of hearts. Now then, South has a problem in spades and in hearts. He has to take the ace of hearts and then drive out the ace of diamonds, and the defenders will then proceed to take the queen of hearts and 2 more heart tricks for a 1-trick set. When you fear a switch to another suit, you have to take a deep breath and play that ace. This is a classic example of what happens. I don't know about the rest of you, but somehow my opponents always seem to find that killing switch. So if you fear a switch to another suit, play that ace and move on down the road. Here's another important thing to think about. It may seem that declarer is perfectly safe if he has 2 stoppers in the opponent's suit. He doesn't have to think about holding up. But here's something to think about. What if you have 2 stops to drive out in your working suit? Say that working suit is topped by the queen jack, like this heart suit here is in this next hand. I have to drive out the ace and the king of hearts in order to develop the 2 tricks that I need. I have 2 stops in the spade suit. If I take one now and I drive out the king, well, okay, that's fine. One of the opponents will win. Continue spades. Then I lead another heart. One of the opponents will win. And my spade stops are gone. When I have 2 stoppers in the opponent's suit, but I have 2 stoppers I have to drive out, maybe they're in the same suit, maybe they're in different suits, hold up 1 round. Hold up 1 round. Notice how the play goes here to trick 1. West leads the 9, top of a doubleton. His partner bids spades. He's a good partner. He doesn't have much in his hand, but he's going to help his partner the best he can. He leads the 9. Declarer calls for the 4. And now East knows that his partner does not have the ace or queen, because if he'd had it, he'd have let it. He has a doubleton. The highest card he has is the 9. He plays the 10 to encourage, saying, I like it, thank you. If South plays the queen here to win that trick, then he drives out a heart stop. East should hop up with the king of hearts, because it's important to keep a stopper in the hand with the long cards in the opponent's suit. So he should hop up with the king of hearts and put his other spade on the table. This time, West would play the jack. And if South decides to hold up, oh well, West just continues spades. On the 3rd round, he has to play the ace. Now, when South leads another heart, East takes the ace of hearts and takes the remaining winners in the heart suit to set the contract. How can you improve the outcome? Let that 10 of spades hold the first trick. You have 2 stoppers to drive out, but you have only 2 stops in the opponent's suit. No trump is a race, and the defenders get the first shot. They get the leg up in the race. So in this case, when you have, and in general, when you have 2 stoppers in the opponent's suit and you have 2 stoppers to drive out, hold up a round. Now notice, if East has both the ace and the king of hearts, you're never making 3 no trump. You have to have the honors divided between the 2 hands. Here's a good guideline. I have put it in bold here at the bottom. When you have 2 stoppers in the opponent's suit, but you need to drive out 2 stoppers in an outside suit, hold up if you can. Hopefully you don't have just a doubleton. If you can hold up a round, you're way ahead of the game. Now, the most common hold-up play involves the ace or sometimes the king, if it's the master card in the suit, but holding up a card that is not so high can also be very advantageous for the declarer, or sometimes it can be disastrous. It all depends on the card gods and how well whether or not they're smiling on you. All right, now then, in order to make 3 no trump here, South has to establish those diamonds. Look at those lovely diamonds. West led the spade 4. East plays the queen. Now, what is South going to do? Is he going to hold up that king? Well, he does. Then East will fire that 3 right back through it. West will take the jack and put the ace on the table, dropping his king. If he wants a trick with that king, he has to take it at trick 1, period. So, making the bid depends on a successful diamond finesse, provided, of course, that West led from a 5-card suit. Now, if he led from a 4 or a 6-card suit, then the queen is the only card that East had. So, what does he need to do? A lead through the remaining king 10 there, if he holds up, means the opponents will take the first 5 tricks. So if he takes the king of spades, now remember, the queen's gone, the king is gone. The lead of the 3, if the diamond finesse doesn't work, if he started with a singleton queen, then he doesn't have a spade left. But if he started with a doubleton, or even 3 of them, if he started with 3 of them, I'm safe, even if the diamond finesse loses, because the opponents can take only 3 spade tricks. But if he started with the doubleton, when I have covered the queen, the 10-9 then stands up. In this case, the finesse works. The finesse works. But we needed for that king to be doubleton. If there are 3 cards here, we're in trouble. So in this case here, we can't hold up the king of spades at all. Simply cannot. If West started with 6 or with 4, South is safe. It's if he started with 5 that there is a big problem. He can see 6 of them. He doesn't know whether West has 5 or 6. You might think if he had 6 of them, though, that he might have overcalled 2 spades over 1 no trump. But that would be my thinking. And of course, it pays to be a pessimist at the table, or paranoid, whatever you want to call it. If there's a worse situation that can happen, if there's a bad situation that can materialize, you need to plan for it. Now, here's a similar situation. The only difference is that the 10 of spades has been replaced by the jack in this hand. This time, it is absolutely fatal to play the king on the queen. Why is that? It's because if he plays the 9, the king and the jack are a certain second stopper. It's an ironclad stopper here. If East continues with the 3, the jack forces the ace and the king takes a trick. Now East is out of spades. Note, there's only the queen of clubs here in this West hand that might take a trick. So that should tell South that if he takes a club finesse, he needs to lead the jack up toward the king, not finesse the other way. Don't finesse into that West hand after all the spades are gone. If South wins the first trick, the diamond finesse loses here. East returns his last spade through the jack 9. Well, West is sitting there with the ace 10 over the jack 9. That is a losing situation. By holding up the king, when he has the jack, he now has an ironclad stopper. Even if the diamond finesse loses, the only difference is he now has the jack rather than the 10 of spades. This one card difference often determines which play you make. After the play of the queen here, the king and jack are equal, and they make an ironclad stopper. Holding the 10, South has to play the king, but holding the jack 9 rather than the 10-9 tells him he should duck. Hold-up plays are most common at a no-trump contract, but they can be used in a suit contract as well. Now, on the opening lead here, queen of clubs. Contract is 4 hearts. West leads the queen of clubs. East plays the 7. Who has the king?
East.
East, yeah. The lead of the queen denies the king, doesn't it? Since declarer can't see it in one of his 2 hands, he knows East has the king of clubs. Well, South looks at his hand and he says, ooh, look at this. I have a possible heart loser. I have a club loser, and I have 2 potential diamond losers. How is my contract in danger? My contract is in danger if East gets the lead with the king of clubs. That's how my contract is in danger. If West holds the ace of diamonds, a diamond through my king is certain defeat. How can I avoid having that happen? You can avoid having that happen by ducking the first club trick. What's West going to do? He can continue a club, but you're in control. Now, the board and your hand on the second round are now void in clubs. East can never get the lead with the king of clubs to push a diamond through your holding. So in this case, even though you're playing a suit contract, it is absolutely right to hold up the ace of clubs 1 round. You can see only 4 of them. It's highly unlikely that one of the opponents has a singleton, simply because somebody would have preempted clubs in the auction, I'm certain. Holding that many, if there are 9 clubs outstanding and one hand has a singleton, that means there are 8 clubs in one of the hands. I'd have preempted in clubs with 8 of them at some number. And if that's the case, then you know that there's a possible singleton in one of the hands. But in the absence of bidding, holding only 4 cards, having them be distributed that way it would be just virtually impossible. I'm not saying it would never happen, but it's virtually impossible. So holding up the ace of clubs until the second round prevents East from being able to get the lead with that king of clubs to push a diamond through. If he gets the lead with the king of clubs, he should turn his head to the right and say, dummy on the right, lead the weakest suit in sight. Well, that's diamonds. Hearts are trumps. look at that spade suit. If my partner has the king, it's dead in the water. I don't want to lead a trump in particular. So I would lead a diamond. If South takes the ace of clubs on the first round, you can see that the heart finesse loses. Back comes another club, and East should put that king on it. No matter which one West leads, he should put that king on it to lead a diamond. He can see that there are only 2 clubs in the dummy. So if he wants to lead a diamond, and the diamond lead needs to come from his side, even if his partner doesn't have the ace, he might have the king, and a trick could be promoted. Look what East holds here. He holds the queen, jack, 10, 9. So it is imperative for South to hold up the ace of clubs here 1 round to keep East out of the lead, to avoid trapping the king of diamonds. All right, that's it this morning, guys. Thank you for attending. Hi, this is Susan. Thanks for stopping by the Oklahoma Collective's YouTube channel. Basically, this channel shows recordings of our free 1-hour bridge lessons for advancing players that we offer every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. If you would like to join us, send your contact information to the email address shown on the screen, and we'll be happy to send you the link. If you would like to follow our channel and be notified when a new recording is uploaded, just push the subscribe button below. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.